Hey guys, my name is Kaylin, and welcome to Intro to Speech and Debate on Public Forum with Make a Statement. So, Make a Statement is a nonprofit organization that aims to educate youth about public speaking and speech and debate events. We're so happy you're interested in public forum and want to get to know public forum better. And yeah, we'll give more information about Make a Statement at the end of our workshop. But for now, have fun, and I'll hand it off to Nitya.
Hi guys, I'm Nithya Garg. I am a sophomore at Doherty Valley High School. I'm currently in varsity roster, and I can drop my email in the chat because if you guys have any questions after this, feel free to reach out. On that note, I will hand it off to Jen.
Okay, sweet. I am Jen. I am the Director of Curriculum Content at Project Make a Statement. And basically this curriculum aims to educate people on different debate events and give them a quick introduction, as well as help them with their public speaking skills, because that is something that is very important in debate. So yes, we'll get started with the workshop now. This is our first workshop, which features public forum.
Okay, cool. Jen, do you want me to screen share?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Sorry. Cool. Okay. So welcome to PF, everyone. I'm not exactly sure what background we have, so if anyone minds sharing what they know, anything we know so far about PF, that would be great. Does anybody mind sharing? Daniela?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So I just want to know what your background is with debate or public forum as an event. So if there's anything that you know, feel free to.
Yeah, well, I don't know a lot about debate, but I do know that you can go 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2. And usually there's one judge, but sometimes there can be more judges that judge the round.
Okay, so for public forum, there is 2 versus 2. And generally during elimination rounds, during the first couple rounds, it's normally 1 judge. And then when you get higher up, there's multiple judges. Does anyone else know anything about the event? Okay, then I'll just get started. So welcome to the first lesson. Public forum debate is a team event that advocates for, okay, this is just a really big definition, but I'll just simplify it a little bit. So public forum is basically a 2-person event in which they give you basically a prompt, and you'll either be AF or neg, and then after that you're basically going to use pre-written evidence. So you'll research in advance and you'll write a case, and then judges will be judging, and they are supposed to judge by looking at the evidence, which is obviously not always the case, but that is how we hope for it to be. Most of the time, your judges will also be your parents, so we highly recommend that you talk to your judges about not being biased during the decisions. But yeah, obviously at the end of the day, it's not always like that. So it's really important to cater what you say to your judge. And it's okay if sometimes it doesn't go your way. Okay, so the topic is a resolution that advocates for solving a problem by establishing a position. So basically the topic would be something like the last topic was about we will implement Medicare for all. So that's a program, it's a bill that basically, I don't know if you guys watch politics, but it's it's a bill about giving basically free medical. We get rid of all the previous factors that come in starting healthcare for all, and it's basically just giving free healthcare for everyone. And so if you're AF, you would say that we should support this and we should have it because we're helping all these lives. And if you're the negation, you say we shouldn't because in the process you're like lowering quality because it's so expensive. And there's a lot of obviously other arguments, but that's just a couple examples. And so if there's any like advanced terminology in the resolution, we recommend using definitions at the beginning. So that's basically you would generally start the, I guess, your constructive by saying like my partner and I negate the resolution. Some people say the resolutions, others don't. And then after that, you would just be like definitions and just basically start talking. This should be pretty short, 20 to 30 seconds, because obviously we don't want to bore the judge with just definitions. So this is like kind of overwhelming to look at, I know, but it's just like the entire, like how the entire round is structured. So the first speech is going to be, so this is not like always true. Basically at the beginning of a tournament, before the beginning of a round, you guys do this thing called a flip, where you have a coin, and then you can choose either Af or Neg or first or second. So basically in the speaking positions, there is like, without like all of this, there'd be one team that goes and then a second team that goes. So you can choose either to go second, which would be like being the second team that starts. And that's nice because you have the final word at the end of the day. So a lot of people prefer to go second when they flip and they win. And then the other thing is you can go Af or Neg, and that would just mean that you start Af or Neg, and then the other team gets to choose the other part of it. So it's not always that you're Af first, you could be Af second as well. But going off of this, it would basically be constructive from the first team, constructive from the second team, then there's a little cross-X, then there is a rebuttal from the first team, rebuttal from the second team, another cross-X, then summary from the first team, summary from the second team, cross-X, and then final focus first team, final focus second team. So yeah, especially there's two types of judges. I actually will get into that later. But sometimes you prefer going second based off of your judge, because depending on what type of judge you have, you might want to have the last word, because you know, like that's going to impact them more. Because at the end of the day, yes, you are catering to the judge for their vote. Okay, there's somebody else, I think. But, okay, so constructive is like the first speeches are basically just pre-written, completely pre-written speeches. And so there's like two person on each team. So one speaker would be doing constructive and summary, and the other speaker would be doing rebuttal and final focus. So generally constructive is like completely, like you just completely write it out, obviously, because you're just going to be like saying all the information. And then for rebuttal, generally what you do is you prep blocks in advance, which is like possible responses to the other team's side, and then you'd basically just go through those during your rebuttal. But rebuttal is a little bit more like after you hear their argument, that's the only time you can actually get that all pulled up. So it is a little bit more in the impromptu or in the moment. And also you don't need to completely rely on everything that you have previously prepped. Some responses that people read are just like logical responses if they don't think what the other side is trying to say is true. And then for summary and final focus, that's where like summary is considered the most important speech in the round, because that's where you basically decide how the round's going to go. You collapse onto what you feel is more important in the round. And I'll explain what collapsing is later, but it's basically just there's going to be so much that's going on, so you just choose like what you want the judge to notice, because even for them and for you, it's really confusing as to like what's going on with the debate. Okay. So case development and evidence. So your team must develop both an Af and a Neg case with arguments to support by evidence and reasoning. Cases should be centered around only a few quality arguments. Research several arguments on each side for refutation use, and formatting of a case should be easy to follow for your judge. So basically that's just saying that like you have to prep both an Af and Neg case, because if you lose the flip and they choose Af, you should have Neg prepped, or like vice versa. So you should always have both sides ready. And then also like you're gonna want like the common way to cite your information or like your evidence is that what we do is we use like the author's last name and then the year. So we just be like, so 20 tells us that blah 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 blah. So yeah, so that's just how we cite our information. And then obviously when you cut cards, which is basically like that's just the way, I guess, it's cutting cards is basically when you copy a certain piece of information from like whatever evidence like you're using, you copy that information and then you just like highlight the parts that you like find important. So it's like you're annotating an article and then you cite it, and that's just called like a card, I guess, which is what we use for evidence. So you should have all of that done beforehand, because at any point in the round, your opponents can call for cards, so they can be like, can you give me the card that tells me this? Because a lot of teams can often misconstrue evidence. So they'll say something in a certain manner that makes it sound like something's very black and white, when it might not be. Like they'd say, the minimum wage will definitely increase, and then you'd call their card, and on the actual evidence, it would be like, there is a low probability that the minimum age could increase. So it's very easy for people to misconstrue evidence and just cut it, like highlight the parts that say it will, like the probability increases, instead of it could possibly increase. So yeah, that's just something you always want to have. You want to always try to cut the best possible and not misconstrue evidence in case you are called upon. And yeah, so cases you can have, generally, like, people have 1, 2, 3 points in their case. So you just call them contentions. So generally, if you have like one contention, you have a 4-minute speech to give for constructive. So it's going to be like with sub points generally, and the strategic benefit behind doing this is because if someone says, like, if they have blocks prepped, or they have like stuff in the rebuttal that goes against your case, obviously you want other points you can go to. So they have 4 minutes. If they're going first, they have 4 minutes to basically just lay a bunch of responses on your case. So if you have one contention and they go through that and they just put like 8 responses in that 4 minutes, then it's really hard to get out of that and respond to all of them. So if you have multiple contentions, it's much easier for them to lay like maybe like 2 responses on each one, and then you only have to go for like one of them where you feel like is the strongest one for you to go to in that round. Also, there's another strategic thing that people do where they put their best contention at the very end of the case, because what the opponents will do is that they'll start reading off like the responses that they have, and sometimes they just like run out of time towards the end. So then if you get lucky, then they might just like say like one or like a really weak response on your last argument, and then it's really nice because like you can easily go for the argument now that there's like not much on it. Effective persuasion includes credible studies, expert quotations, facts and stats, anecdotes. All these things are just like, depending on the type of judge, sometimes like re-saying stuff really helps. So certain teams try to do like they'll do like 3 or 4 contentions in one round, and then they won't have as much of like this quotation. Like if they manage to fit a lot of contention to their thing, then it's not going to be like a lot of the stuff that like there's a lot more space to poke holes because it's not as thorough. So that's why some people like to stick with like 1 or 2 contentions. But yeah, obviously there's strategic benefits to having less or more, depending on what you're trying to use strategically. Prep time. So prep time is basically 2 minutes that you get throughout the entire time. So you have like with your partner, generally you'll be in person. You're just like next to your partner, so you can decide how to use prep time. But online, what we do is we just call our partner, and it's a really fun game of like who's muted, so you don't get the echo. So yeah, you get pretty good about making sure you're muted. But with the 2 minutes of prep time with your partner, you basically want to make sure that you use your prep time really effectively, because if you run out of that 2 minutes of prep time, then as soon as like, let's say summer, like if your last final focus and you want to make like an amazing speech that just like changes the entire course of the debate, and you're just like, I just won this thing, then you probably want some time to prep right before. So you can use like a lot of time people use for prepping is that they use like cross-ex to prep, so that like when your partner is talking, you just don't listen. You like you're just gonna hope that they're gonna do good, and then you just be like writing down stuff, and then you'd maybe use a couple seconds of prep to be like, did they say anything important in cross, or did you say anything important in cross that I can bring up? But yeah, you just want to be really good about how you use prep, because especially at the beginning, it can be really like scary to have to go up there and have like no prepped out speech other than constructive. And you have to just be like, especially for rebuttal, giving a 4-minute speech is not easy if you don't have like a bunch of responses planned out. So you might want to talk to your partner and be like, do you have any ideas for stuff I can say? So yeah, you have to plan out your prep time with your partner. Working knowledge. So the more the debater knows, the better they can perform in a round. Research each argument thoroughly and look at many aspects of the topic. Yeah, so this is just like, if you just know, so sometimes in like debate, we just kind of establish like personalities, I guess, within the team. So we'll be like, wow, that kid's really good at econ. Like they'll just understand all the economy arguments. So like if you're really good at something in general, or like you just know a lot of information on something in general, it really helps, because sometimes you might be like saying a bunch of random stuff, but if you use a bunch of big words, like you can low-key get out of it, because it's all about like the way that you like, I mean, that doesn't sound great, but it's all about the way that you present yourself and like you make yourself sound. So in cross-ex, if they're right, but they're like sounding very shaky or iffy and they're questioning you and they're just like, wait, but are you saying this? Are you saying that? And then you're just like, here, let me tell you what I'm saying. And you're really, really confident. Then they're not really gonna, like, the judge is just gonna be like, wow, this person knows what they're doing, even if they're like not saying anything accurate. So just knowing more stuff in general, or even if you don't know, obviously it's really nice to just like happen and know stuff and research really well so that you're like, I guess, prepped for like cross-ex, because you don't know what they're gonna ask. And like obviously for like the making the responses on your feet, if you don't have responses, obviously it's nice to know stuff on the topic, but at the same time, if you don't, sometimes you just sound really confident and like it's just persuasion. So yeah. And judging. So judges should evaluate teams on the quality of the arguments, not on personal beliefs, and not on issues they think should have been covered. Again, it's not always like that, but we hope it is. And so generally we use this site called Tabroom, which you guys will get to know a little further on. But it's basically just where all the debates, like that's how all the signups happen. And then there's different platforms on which like people use to actually do the debates and run the debates. So I mean, there's like, I forgot the gaming platform, but I was going to talk about that. But yeah, there's like a lot of different. There's like Cloud, and there's Discord. Yes, they use Discord now, so a lot of like gamer boys are very excited about that. Yeah, so there's a lot of really interesting platforms people are trying to use, but like Tabroom is just like the almost universal platform people use for debate, where like all the like worldwide events running will just be like there, and then you can sign up there for certain events, and for other stuff like it'll just be like it'll show up that like you're signed up already if your coach signs you up basically. So on that level, they like you would have to give judges as a team, as a school, or however you're competing. You'd have to give a certain number of judges based on the amount of like kids or students competing. So and then judges generally have like this thing called a paradigm, which is like I don't know why we call it a paradigm. It's literally just like their like bio, where they're just like, hi, I am a parent judge, or hi, I know everything you guys are talking about. Don't BS. I don't like make up stuff with me. So yeah, there's like sometimes people write really, really long paradigms. Sometimes they have nothing. But we highly recommend that, like, as if your parent is judging, that they have like a decent paradigm, because it really influences how you talk in the round. So there's normally two types of judges that we say like exist, which is lay, which would be like parent judges who just like don't know as much on the topic, and flow is like normally like either previous competitors or just like, which is normally like college kids, I guess. But yeah, like previous competitors, people who are just like generally like they're very good at taking notes and stuff, and they will actually like follow what's happening in the round. So based on that, like if you have a lay judge, you'll like really prefer to go second, because for them, even if they don't hear everything, then they're just like, they might hear the last word and be like, wow, they sound right, because like they said it last, right? So you want to like go last for them. But for flow judges, there's this concept of like flowing it through, which is why they're called flow judges. So it's like basically if your partner does not bring it up in a previous speech, you're not allowed to bring it up later on. So flow judges would basically be writing it out, and like how we generally write it is like through arrows. I do not have a flow right now, but it's basically just like you write down all the points and then you draw like an arrow to like the next part of it. And so they would say that, oh, if like your partner didn't flow through in summary, like the other team can call out and be like, they clearly did not flow this through in summary, so they can't bring it up in their last speech for final focus. And people say like that would be abusive, because like we didn't talk about it in our summary because they didn't talk about it in theirs, so we didn't know we had to say anything, right? So basically, like a lot of people like forget about this, but you can say that like they didn't flow through, so they're not allowed to bring it up. And if it's a flow judge, they understand that. But for a lay judge, they're just trying to follow the debate, so they're like, wait, what? Like, I don't understand what's happening. So yeah, you really have to place your bets based on, you get to read the paradigm in advance, and flip can happen depending on how it's going. Right now with Tab lately, there's been like this online flip system, which is just on Tabroom itself. So you see like the pairings come out, and then you can just like flip there and then see what the results are. And they do this thing where it's like you have to respond within 3 to 5 minutes, otherwise they're just going to give the flip, like they're going to let the other team decide. But generally in person, it's just like people will just use Siri and they'll be like, hey Siri, flip a coin, and then you just kind of do it like that in front of the judge. Some teams decide to do it like outside of the round, but not all judges are okay with that. So yeah, you normally just do it like within the round or on tab. If judges do not understand your arguments, they cannot judge it. So yeah, so like this is why you need to really thoroughly explain arguments. If you have like a crazy complex argument that you barely understand and you're trying to convince your judge, you need to be very like know exactly what you're saying, and be clear, and like make sure if you're having a complex argument to like with your partner, you should be try to use like similar words. Even if you're saying the same thing, try to use like similar words, because it helps like really ingrain it in their head, because it's only like you guys basically talk for like total of like let's see, yeah, like 11 minutes, so for a judge, that's like they must hear it like throughout every speech if they want it to actually sink into their head. Judges are usually high school debaters or someone's parents. Yeah, so that's like this is like the flow, and that's the lay. And then make sure everything is crystal clear for them during the round. Yeah, so like for judges, depending on the judge, like collapsing becomes that much more important. So basically, actually, I'll explain collapsing once we go through like the types of responses we can give. Oh, jokes. Okay. So, so basically in rebuttal, there are multiple different types of responses you can lay on your opponent. So there's like defense and offense. I'm sure everyone knows like what that is, but defense would be like saying like that, like, so sorry, in a constructive, I'll start at the top. So the constructive, there's like 4 different parts of your constructive. It's like uniqueness, which is what's happening right now in the status quo. And then you'd say like a link, and an internal link is just like a fancy way of saying like if there's like another part you need. But yeah, basically just a general link, which is like saying like how do you get to your impact, and then your impact. So if you're missing any part of that case, then it's really like, so let's say if they're saying like uniqueness, right? So they're saying like right now in the status quo, everyone is in great poverty. We're going to solve for this poverty, which will help for hundreds of lives, So if you can prove that like the uniqueness is not true, like we're saying like, oh no, most people aren't in poverty, then you can say that like because their uniqueness is wrong, there's no need to solve for all these people if there's no one in poverty. The second thing you can do is like go for their link, right? And you can say we delink, which is just a fancy word to say your link is not true, because like let's say that, oh, but you're not actually solving for poverty. So you just be like, it's just wrong, like you're just not solving for poverty. And then after that you can do turns, which is like, now this is getting into offense, where it actually helps your side. So you want to say like something like, actually you guys are making poverty worse and we're actually helping making it better. So we'd say like that helps us. When you try to do offense, you really need to have actual, like, it's called an implication. Sorry, this is a lot of information, so just like don't worry too much about this. But for the turn, it's like basically like the implication would be like what you're getting out of it. So even if you say like, if my opponent is saying that they're helping a bunch of people out of poverty, and we're saying actually you're hurting them and we're helping them, then, and if they're giving, like, you should be able to give like some, if you want to actually use that later on in the round and try to win off of that, and you want to be like, look, we're like, they're making it worse, we're making it better, then you have to have some impact off of that. You have to be like, actually they're putting 5 million more into poverty. And like, it doesn't matter if like, yeah, because what they could say is like, there's no implication off of this, which not all lay judges will understand, but flow judges will. And what they can say is like, that's like mitigatory at best. It's like a very small thing, because we don't even know how many so let's say that their team is saying that like we're saving for 100 million people going into poverty, like we're gonna get them out of poverty, and then we're basically just saying, actually you send like 50 more people into poverty, like if you don't give an implication, they don't know like if what you're saying is gonna like take out what they're saying, or it's just gonna be some like random piece of information that you're reading to them. So then they can say there's no implication, there's no reason for you to vote off of this turn, because you're not getting anything in the round. Okay, so then now this goes on to collapsing, which you do in summary, or some people do in rebuttal. But collapsing is basically, you're gonna have like, let's say like 1 to 3 arguments. They're gonna have 1 to 3 arguments, and both of you have just read a bunch of responses on each other's case. And so when you're first, you have to obviously go through your opponent's entire case, because you can like basically never drop like what they say. If they say it in their previous speech, you have to mention everything your opponent says. But for you and your partner, you can like strategically decide what you want to go for. So a lot of people like don't understand this because it just sounds wrong, but you are completely allowed to drop a contention in a round. like you do not have to unless they have a turn on unless they're getting offense off of this contention, you do not need to go for it or like mention it or re-explain it, because if you're not like going like, because so let's say if you have like through summary you have like 3 minutes to talk, right? So you can go through like their case and like reread all, like you can be like we're still winning, like they're not winning their thing because we like read you this response which tells you blah, and their second contention we told you blah. Now let's go into our case. And then if you have 3 contentions and you feel like your second one is the strongest, you can literally only go for the second one and still win, as long as they don't have any turns or actually offense. And if they have like offense without like the turns, without any actual implications, you need to say that, because even if you like know it in your mind, it doesn't matter, because they're going to be like, they just didn't respond to it, they just dropped it, they just did not mention it. And then they're going to be like, that's why you're voting for us. So you're going to go like, let's say they put like a turn on your first contention, you'd be like, on our first contention they tell you like, this is a little complex, but you'd be like, they delinked our contention. If you delink, sometimes it takes out the turn, because if you're saying the link to like the impact isn't true, like the impact isn't happening, and they're saying the impact is actually like helping their side, then like that means that if the impact isn't even happening, then like how is it helping it won't help their side. So then you just say like, we concede their delink, we agree with their delink, and that means that the impact's just never gonna like they're not getting any offense because the impact's never gonna happen. But sometimes it's not necessarily true. Like obviously every round's different. You don't really know exactly what information they're reading, but that's like one way a lot of people are just like, the offense they're stating is not true. And then the other way we do it is that we just be like, you can read something, you can like read an actual response, how you would for their case, where you just be like, that turn is not true and I'll tell you why. And then after that, you just like the one contention, you normally go for like one contention. You can obviously go for more depending on how your round is going. But in that contention, whatever contentions you go for, if they read any like piece of offense, you need to respond to basically every single piece of offense. And like even if you don't like offense and defense, everything, because like even if you have like literally nothing in mind, you need to touch on it and say something, because then your partner can still be like, nope, my partner said that in their last speech, we are still accurate, we're still winning. So even if you like you just say something like really random, as long as you have like a response, it's better to say something than nothing, because then at least your partner can be like, nope, we talked about it, let me re-explain, and they might say something completely different, but we just hope that no one notices. Yeah, so you're basically going to want to respond to everything for that contention you're going for, and like you have to revalidate it, and then you do like a linking session, which is just saying like you go back through your case. So you're like, now that we are everything they're saying on our case isn't true and our case is actually happening, then you like go through your like, if you really want to reinstate it in the judge's mind, you go through the entire like case, and then like that one contention you're going to go through all the stuff that you have in your first speech, your constructive, and you're like here's what we judge, like, and you try to use like words for the judge, and you're like, judge, here's what we tell you in our second contention where you'll be voting off. We tell you that like first Stella 19 tells you blah 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 blah, and that's why blah blah, like something tells you blah blah blah. At the end of the day, we tell you that Horace 09 tells you we'd be saving for 200 million people. So at the, like that, you just want to kind of go through the case like one more time quickly if you do have the time, and make sure to extend your impact, like what I mentioned earlier. But if you don't mention something in a previous speech, the other opponent shouldn't, like they technically can't mention in their next speech. You really want to especially mention like impacts, and people try to extend like their link throughout the entire thing, because technically if you don't extend a link, like if you don't like say the like some cards, like the important cards or the important part of your constructive throughout every speech, you're not allowed to bring it up in your last speech. But obviously like not like both teams don't do that, so they can't like call out the other team if they didn't do it themselves. So this is like not something we often call each other out on, or we say that you didn't do it, because half the time we don't do it. But it's really like highly recommended to like go through your entire link every time, and it can be like literally 15 seconds where like our case is telling you blah tells you to blah, which helps this many lives. Like, no, you don't have to mention anything else than that, but try to mention it throughout every single speech. Make sure, especially to like flow through your impact, because if your impact isn't clear in the judge's mind, that's really problematic when they're voting. Like they should know that this team is saving for 100 million going into poverty. This is saving for blah. And the last thing is weighing. So this is like basically considered the most important part, or like the framing as well. So basically it's just like, why do your impacts matter, right? So if you're telling me like, so sometimes people give impacts like 95% of people will be saved from poverty, and we're just like 95% of what? Like, what is the number? Like, well, why does that matter? So there's different ways to weigh, which is basically like weighing is like, if you just think about it logically, it's just like hearing the word weighing is just like you look at two things and you like use a weighing scale and you're like, which one matters more? So for a judge's mind, they're hearing all this information thrown at them, and you might know like a lot about what you're reading, and they might, like, your opponents might know a lot about what they're saying, but as a judge, you're just trying to like understand like what is the argument they're trying to make, right? So like at the end of the day, even if they like believe both of the things you're saying, you should still be winning, and you should be telling the judge why you are winning. And that's what weighing is. So it's like assuming that both of the teams are winning like their like points and they're still getting to like their numbers, then we'd say that we're still winning. And so a couple ways to do this would be like, one's like magnitude and just being like, I am winning for a bigger amount of people than our opponent, so you should be saving for us. But then let's say like you're not winning the biggest amount of people and you're like, oh no, what do I say? So like let's say you're saving for like 50 million like lives who are going to die, and they're saving for 100 million going into poverty, right? So then you would say, actually, you prefer our impacts over theirs because we're telling you about 50 million people dying, which is deaths are irreversible. And like for them, we would say that like 100 people going into poverty, that's always changeable. Like people are constantly going into poverty and getting out. Like that's always like a long-term thing you can change. But for us, we have to save. So that would be like, you'd say like, it's more urgent to save for our cause than it is to save for them. And then another thing you can say is like time frame. Yeah, like we don't really know how long it'll take for them to implement. Like if they're saying that like we need to start some system and that's going to solve for everything, and we're like, we don't know how long it'll take to start this system, versus for us, we tell you like this can be implicated, like we can start this right now. So we'd say it's more important to like solve for this if it's more urgent and we need to solve it right now. Yeah, there's like a lot of different ways. I'm not going to go into that because there's like so many different versions, but there's like some general words. I'll just like, there's some buzzwords that everyone uses, like magnitude, probability, urgency, reversibility, a bunch of stuff like that. And then there's framing, so that's a little bit more complex, but it's just like at the beginning of the round, it's kind of like how you read definitions. You sometimes just read framing that you pre-write normally, and framing is just like what. So this is like a more advanced version of weighing. So it's like it helps you with your weighing. So at the beginning, you'd be like at the like throughout this round. So sometimes we read like structural violence framing. So we'd be like, it does not matter like what they say during this round. We always have to prioritize structural violence that's occurring in like America, because we never talk about it. And then you give it 3 reasons, like there's like a white policymaker bias, which means we always put like cases about structural violence on the back burner. We never solve for it. So that if they like anything they tell you is like basically you're going to become part of the problem if you vote for them. And you don't want to put it like that, obviously, but that's basically what you're saying. Like you're saying like at the end of the day, like if you write in like one contention about how you're going to solve for the racism occurring in the system, and then you read this like really good framing at the beginning where you're just like, this is 3 reasons why at the end of you should always be voting for us. So one time I read framing on structural violence where I was just like, yeah, like we don't have like there's policymaker bias, we never save for it. Structural violence is like long term because it's like it's constantly occurring, right? So then it just keeps like exponentially growing. And then also the fact that like it's in the system, it's like it leads to direct death. So people, like a lot of people argue that, okay, but like structural violence is not helping that many, like it's not going to hurt that many people, is one response they'd read. And then we'd say like, actually it is hurting a lot of people because it exponentially grows with time. So like, because like it starts off like that's the problem, like that is becoming part of the problem because we just never talk. Like we always say, oh, it's not helping a lot of people, and then we just like move on and we don't talk about it. So let's say you're winning the framing. At that point, then that's when you can use your weighing. So like sometimes in framing, people read, oh, you can't use the typical stuff like magnitude and scope and stuff because we always have to favor like structural violence. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll try to link into the framing, which would be like, they're like, actually we're saving for structural violence as well. But if they don't do that and they try to weigh, then you can be like, they didn't say anything against our framing, so we're winning our framing. Assuming that, we would say that any weighing they do is like not going to help their side at all, because if like framing should be like the first thing as a flow judge, that's the first thing you look at. So you just look at like the who's winning the framing right now, and then you'd be like, based on that, you'd look at the weighing, and you'd be like, okay, now that we know like what we're weighing here, we can look back at like, okay, like it's a little hard to explain, but it's like framing is like, it narrows down what the judge will, like if they're only voting for structural violence, and they'd only look at the weighing that like refers to structural violence. So if your opponents just say nothing about structural violence and they don't respond to that, then as a flow judge, I just automatically vote for you. But if it's a lay judge, then it's framing, often people just don't go for that because that's so like, even explaining it right now is kind of confusing, right? Like you're saying like, oh, because I'm winning the structural violence thing, now you like I win the entire round. Like that's kind of confusing for someone to understand unless you know like all the rules. So you never depend on framing if you're going for lay or even as flow. Some you just never depend on it because you don't know if they're buying what you're saying. That's why you still do weighing at the end of the day. So you're like, even if like in the weighing, you'd be like, even if you don't buy all of our framing, we still tell you we're winning because blah blah blah. Yeah, that's like overall. Okay, I think it's a good time to start the breakout room drill. So I think Jen can control this, and I don't know if I can, but basically we're gonna be doing a quick drill. So you'll get like 1 minute to prep. So they're gonna be like 2 rounds. One is basically, I'll just like show you the, so these are like on the round one part, it's like really random things like Santa Claus is evil, and then the other one would be like more like realistic ones, I guess. And so the first round is just gonna be like, you're gonna get 1 minute to prep, a 1 minute constructive from the AF, and then the neg gets 30 seconds to prep. Like they should already have done their constructive during like that 1 minute beforehand that both teams got, but then you probably want to use at least 30 seconds to like prep your rebuttal in response to what they're saying. And then you want to give a 1 minute 30-second speech, and then the AF gets 30 more seconds to prep to like give their rebuttal basically, and then do the AF thing. So here, this is like a really good example of like how like, so like AF strategically, it's really nice for them because they have the last word, but then neg can still be like, they can still win if they're very good, as like that's like the first and second thing. Obviously this is not like the actual system, like it's a much longer debate, but this is just like a quick way to like thinking on your feet, really random topics and like stuff like this. So I'll put all this up in the chat so you like remember the timings, but we'll put you into breakout rooms for like a couple seconds, just like note, or we can say I think what breakout room you're in, but we'll put you in breakout rooms for a couple seconds, and then like based on what breakout room number you're in, we'll just note down whatever your first and second like round are of like what your topic is. Okay, so there are okay, wait, Jen, how do we want to do this?
How many people did you want in the breakout room before?
It was like 2, but
Zoe just said that she can opt out. In the chat.
Actually, we can, for this one, we can literally just do it here, to be honest. So we could just do, if anyone minds going twice, then Zoe can go against one person, and then
I'll go twice.
Okay, cool, perfect.
Video on?
So, okay, actually, I'll just put up the entire like list, and you can just choose anything you want to do from like the random one, and then the, yeah.
So, and then we can discuss after.
Yeah, we'll just like talk about feedback that everyone has. Also, I didn't talk about this, but there's like a concept of flowing, which is just like writing down what's going on in the round. So if you're not actually like debating right now, just like you can flow and just tell us what you think afterwards. Okay, so Faison, do you have any preference on like a topic for the first round?
I'll do the Santa Claus is evil.
Okay, cool.
Is it like 1v1s?
Yeah, it's 1v1. Do you want to be after neg? Santa Claus
Oh,
is evil.
so which one is which?
So AF would be agreeing with this, so you'd be Santa Claus is evil.
Yeah, sure. I'll agree
Okay.
with it.
Cool. And then just who wants to go against him for like the first round?
Yeah, okay, I can.
Okay, I will put the thing in the chat. You guys have 1 minute to prep.
Wait, so I would be doing Santa Claus is not evil?
Yes. Okay, so I'll
Okay.
give you like a second to get like some flow like paper out. We normally just do it on printer paper, to be honest, and then you can have like 2 colors, one for you and one for the opponent. So just get that out and let me know when you're all good to go.
Okay.
So do we each get 1 minute to talk?
So right now you guys get 1 minute to prep. Are both of you guys ready to like? Do you guys have paper?
Yeah, I think we're both ready.
Okay, cool. Your time starts now. You have
All right. Wait, do I go first?
you have like 1 minute to prep contention.
Oh, 1 minute to prep. Okay.
Yeah. And your first speech is 1 minute 30 seconds. So.
Okay, bet.
Okay, Faison, you ready?
All right. So first of all, Santa Claus is evil because he's a criminal. Every year, he breaks and enters into people's houses, and he's a thief as well. He steals cookies. Also, after doing all this, the guy disappears for a whole year, which is also a crime, to flee the country after doing a crime. So he's basically an evil criminal.
Okay. So try to re-give that speech. So you technically have 1 minute
Yeah.
30 seconds. So you
Okay.
can be like, we negate. You can get all fancy. So you can be like, we negate the oh my God, I forgot the word. We negate the resolution that Santa Claus is evil, or so we affirm the resolution that Santa Claus is evil. And you'd be like, contention one is that he breaks and enters, and he's like, yeah, and then say like,
All
and like
right.
the
So
song, and your evidence can be the song, whatever you want to say. But yeah, so just try to make it longer.
okay, that makes sense. I just did it. We had 1 minute, and it's about Santa Claus being evil.
Yeah, so just try to like explain your
All right.
intentions more.
So contention one, he's a criminal. So first, he breaks and enters into people's homes. He steals cookies. Contention two, he flees the country every year and he disappears for the whole year except for one day. So he's not a good person for doing that. And some of the kids don't even get presents. And also some kids might not get presents even though they've actually been good, but he just thinks that they're not good and then they don't get what they deserve. How do I okay, let's say you have like 2 minutes and then you're done talking after 1 minute. Do you have to keep talking for 2 minutes? Or can you just say like,
Okay, so like normally you're gonna have the opposite problem because like later on you're gonna be all prepped out and you're gonna have way too much to say. But for now,
yeah, that seems more like what I would do.
yeah. So like
Add
later
more.
on people are like, oh my God, I have such little time to talk. But when you start off, I used to be so scared. I was like, I cannot talk for 4 minutes to give a rebuttal because that's scary, like giving it on top. Like, yeah, this is like on the top of your head.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
it's okay, you're completely good. Okay, the negation.
Okay. So do I start?
To prep if you want to, but you can just go for your speech too.
Okay, I'll just go. Okay, so we negate the resolution that Santa Claus is evil. Contention one is the fact that he delivers presents to the children of the world, giving hope and giving hope for the coming year. And contention number two is the fact that he gives children a reason to be good all year round. And I just want to take on what Faizan said and say that how do you know that he isn't giving presents to people who have been good all year round? How do you know? He only doesn't give presents to those who are not good and giving them a reason to be good all year round. So that is our contention. And yeah, is that all I'm supposed to say?
Yeah, that was good. That was like you gave a response to theirs, and then you.
Okay.
Okay. And then Faizan, you have 30
So now
seconds.
I rebuttal.
Yeah. Yeah, you
All
give
right.
it.
So the first thing you said was that he provides hope for all the kids and makes them act good all year long. But that's actually not true because there's no way of knowing if he's the actual cause for the kids being good. It might just be the kids are good, and then and even in the process of him rewarding these kids, he's doing crimes. So he's evil.
Okay, good round, guys. Okay, so from this round, does anyone have any like feedback?
I thought that the arguments were actually kind of unique. Like I wasn't expecting some of those myself, and it's good that we have somewhat like of a format down. So like contentions and like overall the speeches were coherent and clear. So that was good.
Yeah, I'd like to give some feedback of my own as well. And I really appreciated how it seemed to follow some sort of structure, like Jen said, like some kind of flow. And I think that's the most important part of PF and just debate in general and SDA style. But I do have to agree with Nichia that you guys will will kind of run out of time when you're actually arguing and fully prepped out for your stuff. So this is just a drill, and this is kind of like a impromptu thing, so I totally get it. But for future reference, you will run out of time for things to say, which I believe all debaters struggle with. So it's important to practice with your partner and prep with your partner in the future for actual debate tournaments.
Does Faizan, do you have any stuff for your opponent? Do the opponents have any like feedback from each other?
Not really. Her points were good, and like she said them in proper format, so not really. Do you have anything for me? Like, how could I improve next time?
I don't have anything for you now. Like, I think your points
Alright.
are good and solid too.
Okay. Just for the next round, I'll give a little bit of feedback. So yeah, overall, it was really good because y'all got the I guess the basic idea pretty fast. But so yeah, the only thing is I guess buffing up your case, making it sound like more. So for the next one, there's supposed to be multiple parts of a contention. So try to just talk about obviously there's not going to be uniqueness, or you don't have to be like Santa Claus. Right now Santa Claus exists, and that's why he's bad. You don't do that much, but there's you can try to include a little bit more and be we have evidence because blah, or just try to explain your contention more to the judge. And then after that you can just to make it a little more structured, you can be if when you're giving your rebuttal, you can be on their first contention we tell you blah, on their second contention we tell you blah. And then try if you can, to use a little bit of weighing and just be we have a bigger magnitude than them for some reason. We just do. So yeah, just try to I guess go through their case and be first contention, second contention, third contention, and then try to do some weighing where you're we are winning. Yeah.
So you could undermine the defense?
Yeah.
Or,
So
okay.
you can be okay, so for you, okay, so if you were going AF, what I would have one thing you could have been was your contention was he's bad, right? Breaking and entering. So I would have been first, this sets breaking and entering is bad for two reasons. One, obviously, first, the household that you're breaking and entering into. Two, it sets the example that breaking and entering is okay, which is wrong. And then you could be on their side, they're you said something about how it's you don't know if this is the only reason that they're actually behaving well, right? You can be we don't know that what they're saying is true because they could be behaving well for other reasons. But we would say that it's so easy for you to vote for us because I mean he's clearly breaking and entering, that's just a fact. So obviously that's just not a good example. There's no if to that. So we'd say you vote for us because our it's just so clear. So yeah. There's not a crazy amount of stuff you can say with this one, obviously, because it is. Okay, so now we can do one more round. I think Zoe does not want to go. So I'll screen share really quickly, like the thing again. And this one can just be like a little bit more realistic ones. You might have more to say for this one. So this time, does the other side have any choice on like what to go for?
Wait, I'm just reading
Are
through
we
them.
doing round 2 now?
Yeah, really
Okay.
quickly.
All right, this time Rokoya, I can pick.
Okay, I think we should do homework should be banned.
What? Okay. Is it? Oh, it's round 1 still.
Yeah.
You can do the round 2 stuff.
Oh, okay, I can choose whatever from the whole chart.
Yeah, joking ones, and these are like more realistic ones.
Okay, I'm just reading through them. Okay, I think we should do homework should be banned.
Okay. So you guys have 1 minute to prep, and then this
Wait,
time.
who's doing what? You wanted to support homework should be banned?
Yeah, I could support homework should be banned.
All right.
Okay. Okay, I think that's a minute. Is the affirmation ready?
So I'm the affirmation, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we support the resolution that homework should be banned. Contention 1 is that homework doesn't improve students' academic outcomes. Contention 2 is that banning homework can decrease burnout issues with students, and it can increase the amount of family time and socialization time. Contention number 3 is that it can reduce the negative impact of homework on students' health, such as mental and physical burnout. And some students have a chaotic home environment, so some of them can't have that. It can't be the same for everyone. So that really impacts the students' learning capabilities and future. Okay, that's all.
Okay, negation has 30 seconds to prep. That was also a lot better, I just want to say. There's a lot more information. Okay, Faison, ready?
Yeah. All right. So first of all, homework helps students develop time management, responsibility, and initiative, which they will need to succeed in the real world. All of these skills are really important during university and during work that future students may have after high school and grade school. Also, according to a study done by my teacher at my old school, there is a correlation between doing homework and getting good grades. Also, if students burn out now because of homework, how will they not, what's to say that they won't burn out during university or during work in the future? Also, Ruqayya talked about the situations that students might be in that may cause it to be harder for them to do homework, but teachers can accommodate for these students based on their situations. And it doesn't mean that all homework should be banned. It just means that those students can be accommodated differently.
Solid evidence right there. You guys have 30 more seconds to prep for your last speech. Okay, ready?
So I basically go against what Faizan said.
Yeah, and then tell us why you're winning.
Okay, so Faizan mentioned that kids who are doing homework now, if they burn out now, then how will they be able to survive in university? So to that, I would like to say that you cannot compare a student in grade school right now to a student who is entering university. The mental capability and physical capacities are very different and vary greatly. So you cannot be comparing a student right now to a student who's entering into university. Additionally, you have to look at the fact that not every teacher can accommodate for each and every student. Each and every student has their own problems going on at home, and all of them have a chaotic home environment to some extent. Doing in-class work would be more beneficial to those students because they would be able to be in the same environment as all other students, and that won't really change the amount of attention they're getting from their teachers, and that really increases their learning in the future as well.
That was actually really solid. Both of you guys did like a really good job in that one. Does anyone else have any feedback?
Yeah, I just like to say how like the rebuttals, like the reputations massively improved. I also saw how you guys started like summarizing what your opponent said. Like Faison said blah blah blah, but here's my response. Like I thought that just having something or telling the judge what your opponent said is like really important and crucial when they're like flowing. And also I thought that like you guys had inherent like links as well. Because like I remember chaotic situations at home lead to poor academic outcome, something like that. Like having that link, that warrant is really crucial for having the judge buy your argument. So that was amazing. Both of you did a really good job.
Also, just to go off of Jen's feedback, you guys also had very solid impacts. I think they were something that could be used as weight between like kind of the results of the debate. But I do have some advice for you guys. When you guys are kind of using your impacts, you might want to go towards kind of a larger magnitude and larger outcome. For example, what does poor academic life lead to? It can lead to like decreased socioeconomic kind of relations. You know, you want to try to link it with good links to kind of a larger magnitude. So it seems like a bigger impact than what you have. But for now, I think you guys have solid impacts given the time you are given to prep. And I think you guys have very good potential to do well in Prufo.
Okay, do opponents or Zoe, does anyone have any feedback for each other? Okay,
No,
yeah,
I think Faizan did really well.
Yeah, you did really well too.
This is the most like nicest civil debate I've seen. But yeah, that was honestly very good. You guys were like, yeah, you could just tell how much like you guys really took our feedback and like just I don't know, that was like really crazy improvement. There was evidence and there was like the rebuttals were both really good. And yeah, I think what Jen said about like restating like your opponent's point and then saying why like they're wrong was really nice because it was so easy to follow your order. I will drop my email in the chat if anyone else has any other questions. So, yeah, is there anything else Jen or Kaylin want to say so we can wrap up?
I feel like, oh, sorry, you can go.
Nita, can you share your screen for a quick sec and kind of show the last slide? I just wanted to explain some things. Yeah, so basically, a little bit more about Make a Statement. Again, Make a Statement is a nonprofit where we aim to educate youth about public speaking and speech and debate events. We're very thankful for you guys for attending our very first workshop. We really liked how much work and effort you put into today's workshop. If you're curious about the other speech and debate events, we have other workshops hosted in the next coming Sundays as well. But if you want to hear some news or other updates for future lessons and workshops, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Make a Statement, Project Make a Statement. Sorry, the slide is incorrect. It's at Project Make a Statement, and our email is projectmakestatement@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out to us at any time.